The following program is a production of the Fairfax Network, Fairfax County Public Schools.
Hello, welcome to the Educator's edition of Meet the Author. Today we explore the connection between professional writer and professional teacher. Join the conversation by tweeting with the hashtag #TeachWriting. You can also use the old-fashioned phone to give us a call. Here's our first question. What is the key to good writing instruction? Start tweeting your responses now and we'll find out what our guests think in just a moment. Stay tuned, Meet the Author is about to begin. Welcome to Meet the Author. I'm your host, Emily Godfrey, and joining me today are 4 educators from Fairfax County Public Schools who also happen to be published authors. Lisa Zargarpur from Fort Hunt and Alexis Rivera from Fairfax Villa are the authors of The Teachers Want a Snow Day. Brian Herberger from Willow Oaks is the author of Miss E. And Lori Lester from Stratford Landing and Beech Tree will talk about her book, Cool Cat, bringing 1940s and 1950s flair to your wardrobe. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
And congratulations on publishing and writing your own books. That's amazing.
It's fun.
It is fun.
Well, let's jump right into this. Brian, could you tell us a little bit about Miss E? What is it about?
Sure. So I like to think of Missy as historical fiction with a twist. The setting is 1967 in San Francisco, and the main character is a high school girl. Her father is in Vietnam in the war, and she gets tangled up in some anti-war demonstrations and starts to feel conflicted about the war. The twist is that there is a mysterious woman in town that no one really knows about, who turns out to be an important person in American history.
Really? That's very mysterious. What was the inspiration for writing this book?
The inspiration was really a drive home from work on a Friday afternoon when I kind of had this idea that this girl meets this person, and what would it be like? I won't give away who she is. You'll have to read it, but I got goosebumps. I thought it would be really amazing to meet this person, and the story just evolved from there. The time period was based on when this person would have been around to meet, and it put us in the Vietnam era, so that kind of inspired me to have the main character's father in the war.
So you just went with it, that like gut idea that was really exciting. That's awesome.
It was exciting to me, and I guess I wanted to find out what happened next, so I had to write it.
Well, I do too. It's very exciting. Lisa and Alexis, how did your collaboration start with your book?
Do you remember a few years ago when there was no snow and everybody just wanted a day off?
Yes, I do.
I came in one day and I was like, not one snowflake fell. And it sounded to me much like a younger child's story with all that repetition. And I ran to Alexis because I knew she'd already written a book and she wouldn't think I'm crazy because we're kindred spirits. So I just kind of said, what do you think of this? And we just got all excited and collaborated after that. So.
I went home.
Oh, yeah.
I went home that night. I was so excited, and I said, I think I might have something. So I sketched something out. And in first grade, we teach a lot of sequencing. So I thought, well, we can talk about the anticipation. And we talked about that and collaborated. And not just back and forth, and how do you think this would go if it was sequenced?
How would each teacher like look forward to that day off? The PE teacher's going to do one thing, and the math teacher might be thinking about it in a different way. So, because we thought, well, that brings that interest for the different subjects, and then of course, I don't know if kids realize that we look forward to those snow days, probably more so than they do sometimes. So
definitely. Can you talk a little bit about the bilingual aspect of the book? How did that, what made you choose to do it that way?
Well, both of ours, at that time I was at the same school at Fort Hunt. And we have a large Hispanic population, and it just seems like it was the natural thing to do, that we could do that. And I just so happened to be married to a Hispanic man, so I asked his mom one day if she wouldn't mind translating for us, and she did. And
well, Fort Hunt's a Spanish immersion school too, so just kind of thinking, what other use could I get out of telling the story? So because the sequencing would also be important then if you're learning another language. So
it sounds like you guys took that inspiration also and you like ran with it, and we're so excited to do that. And you've met the needs of your community as well with that book. That's wonderful. Lori, what inspired you to write your book?
My grandma
fashion?
and her closet. Although I have been infused with the genetic makeup of a very stylish background. But no, my grandmother, I grew up from a single mom with my grandparents, and so she was very much a big part of my life. And the apple of her eye, next to me, of course, and my mom, were her Chanel shoes, right?
Oh, well, of course.
Of course. And there's that time period of the 40s and 50s is so historically rich. And so much of what we wear today is influenced by that. And also, too, I just think it's so fascinating how the history of the time also, you know, it promoted certain fashion trends. And again, what we bring about today, a lot of that happened during that time period. So it's pretty exciting. Come full circle.
Yeah, that is very exciting. I want to switch gears just a little bit and ask you about the writing process. As writers, you have your own writing process, the way that you like to go about writing. How does that differ from what you teach children? Like when you teach writing in your classrooms, do you teach the same way that you like writing, or
Absolutely.
do you teach a different way? Well, let's speak to that for
Absolutely.
a second,
It's interesting because in the position that I'm at now, I'm an AART. So I get to have a lot of children, more so than just my self-contained classroom. But even when I had my self-contained classroom, they're always surprised to think, how many drafts did you do, Miss Lester? You know, it's not, being a writer, even a professional writer, we don't start at word 1, chapter 1, and then, you know, end at the last word of the book. It's never like that. And it's always so interesting to see their faces and to see their reaction as to, what, you wrote it 18 times? You know, and I think that, and that's okay, that's real. And I want them to be used to getting those ideas out, sharing those ideas first. Don't worry about the spelling, don't worry about the grammar, we'll get to that. Get the idea flowed out, get it out on paper, and then draft, redraft again, and redraft again. It's the same way that I work.
Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in? How is it different?
I feel the same way. I don't feel like it's different at all. I mean, one of the things that I always told my students was, well, just write. You know, don't worry about the spelling, and that's very much how I wrote. I would write a chapter or two at a time, and then not even look at it and come back to it a day or two later. And then again, very much like the writing process we teach our students, the editing was a really important step. And like you say, just the number of times that you go back and it's never perfect.
No.
You feel like, okay, well, this is it, and then you find some other things to change.
Yeah, exactly. It's never perfect until it's printed, and then you just can't keep, you know, evolving it.
Yeah. Well, after your book was published, did you guys look at it and think like, we want to keep editing, keep editing?
I think so. Although I was actually just maybe one little tiny minuscule thing, but I was pretty happy with, because I too had read it 39 times and edited 39 times, and the kids are like, what? I said, well, you put it away and then you bring it out, just like that's what we do in our writing folders. We write simultaneously, we write different things, and then we put it away, we bring it back out. But I always tell my students, write what you know and what you like. That's really important.
That's very good
you
advice.
become and let yourself become part of the story, and that will make it, make it happen that way. And the thing that we liked most about, I think, our book was that we influence like the people that we taught with and ourselves, and we put them in the book. So another thing to tell students is to put your cat in the story, put your family in the story, and make it more personal.
Yeah, use the inspiration from real life. What is the most difficult part of the writing process for you? What do you think?
Ooh.
Or for your students even too. Like, do you
Well,
think it's the same?
I'm a music teacher, so I use literature a little bit differently. We retell stories. I feel like in my classroom, I see my kids once or twice a week, depending on the schedule. And to have them do creative things in a very short period of time is really hard. And I try to tell my kids, you're not going to get a lot of time to do this, so I want you to wallow in whatever you're feeling right now. If it's frustrating, that's okay. That just tells you that you probably have some ideas that need to come out, but we don't have enough time. So I can work from the perspective of, I'm sorry, you got to go to PE now, and I know that was really fun. And sometimes what I'm also having my kids do is take either a poem, or maybe it's a series of just something that they're describing, and they have to turn it into sound and movement. And
wow.
they also have to, so it's, for them it's not like this handwriting process, but it's this, what comes first, second, sequencing process maybe more, and working with other people to kind of get it right. So I feel like I can speak to them about your time is valuable, and we all process this stuff a little bit differently, and I don't feel like they get a lot of time to just wallow in creativeness. We have these very short chunks, so that's my perspective.
I think for me, the most difficult part was in the editing process, realizing that there were some pieces that I had to let go, or pieces that I had to change because they had been with me for so long, and I felt like, well, that's the only way it can be. And then I, after hearing for some people that read it, realized, no, that's, I do have to take that out, or I do need to change that. And in the end, it was better, but at first it was difficult to admit that it needed to be changed or removed.
Did you have to cut any characters? Like, did it feel like they were dying?
No, I didn't. I didn't have to cut any characters. It was smaller sections, and in fact, there was one reader that there's a character that kind of leaves the story about halfway through, and someone read it and said, I don't want to see him go. I like him too much. And that was enough to make me realize, well, I can't just leave him. Like, I need to bring him back a little bit in the end. So I did get to bring him back, yeah.
What about you, Lori? What's the most difficult part?
You know what? You kind of pinpointed something that I can resonate with. Yeah, that emotional attachment, it's kind of like you build this creative piece. It's such a big part of you. And, chopping the fat, editing it out, it has to be done. And I think that's one thing that as the kids get older and you have more time to do these more elaborate writing projects, they kind of get more of an understanding with. It's like, oh, Miss Lester, but I like that sentence. No, but it doesn't really work here, That's something that it's just kind of part of the craft. I still kind of take the fat that's chopped off, those editing things, and I have a little file that I put them in, and save them for later because I never know when I can use them again, Right. And I tell them that too. Yeah.
Well, my next question is about using mentor texts in your teaching. Mentor texts are texts that like published works that are really good examples to model sentence structure, dialogue. What are some of the mentor texts that you guys use in your writing? Brian, would you go first?
So one author that I really love is Maggie Stiefvater, and she recently just finished up the Raven cycle. And I guess what I really like about her is the sentence structure that she uses. She tells a wonderful story, but the sentence structure that she uses is so poetic and so complex that I think for students, for me, it's something to strive for because it is so complex. But you read it, and it really just it has such meaning and such imagery that I think for students writing, it's definitely something for them to model and really work toward.
And we have one right here on the screen. If you want to comment on this particular passage, if you'd like to.
This is a line I really like. I think it embodies a lot of the things that we teach students about imagery. It's talking about this journal, that it's personification, that this journal wanted something, and I think it's just it's poetic, and it really just kind of brings the idea to life for the reader.
Nice. Lisa, what are some of the mentor texts that you like to use?
Well, I'm working a little bit differently because this is so much more for younger children, but I remember when my children were younger, they used to really love Dr. Seuss, the nonsense sounds and words, but they all had a rhythm and a rhyme. We loved the Give a Mouse a Cookie books when the kids were little, because we would change the story. I'd be like, oh, if you give Maggie a biscuit, she's gonna, we can apply it in our real life.
Yeah.
And I think that connection of what you can turn it into real life for a child is that's that magical piece. So those are the things I kind of was thinking about, the little repetitions that the child will pick up on very quickly, and they'll just want to jump in.
Like the musicality
Right.
of the book. That's
Right.
the music background. That makes a
Author's
lot of
craft,
sense.
just
Yeah.
the different things that you can do to make it, take a little idea from here and a little idea from there and make it your own. So I brought some mentor
What
texts.
were your mentor texts that you
Well,
like to use?
I teach first grade, so we do the small moment, which is a really big thing. It's not so small. It's a big deal in first grade and in second grade. And I have this book by Jane Chelsea Argonaut. It's called Sultans, and it really is a good description of what a small moment is. It's just one moment in time. So instead of talking about the going to King's Dominion and telling a whole story about what happened from beginning to end, you just zone in on one particular thing in that small moment, like riding the roller coaster and how scared you were and the different emotions, and just going with that. So I think this is a really good mentor text for that particular thing. But with sequencing, I go for Cookies Week, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which is snow day, essentially, too.
Cool. We actually have a tweet coming through. This tweet asks, what's your take on fan fiction? Anybody want to jump in?
Brian.
I think it's a great concept. I personally haven't read fan fiction, and I haven't written it. I definitely see that in my own kids when they have a book or even a movie that they really love, they want to model that. So I think it's a great way for a young writer, if they do have an author or a book that they really enjoy and really love, to kind of get into that writing process and work toward that model. So I think it's definitely,
it's that innovation piece that you're taking this thing and you're growing it from what it is to your own, adding your own ideas and things to it. I think it's a cool idea. I mean, I know in our musical world, like, we can start from, you have to start from someplace that you know, and then the kids get these extra ideas that go around it, and then suddenly it's their creation, and it's really neat to watch that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm for anything that allows them to follow their passions, because that's where you're going to get the good writing.
Well, what are some mentor texts that you like to use, Lori?
Oh my gosh, I have a lot. I have so many. It was really hard for me to decide. One of my favorites, and which can be applied basically from, I would say, probably about first grade to fifth grade, is this one. It's called "I Love You, the Purplist," and it's by. Can you read the author's name?
This is by Barbara Juice and illustrated by Mary White.
Thank you so much. That book is a great mentor text in that there's some fabulous metaphorical language in it, and especially that's one of my favorites for teaching free-form poetry. Again, anything that has the rich language is an instant draw for me. And if I can combine that passion that the kids like with the rich language, it's a slam dunk. It's a winner. I'm going to use it.
I was going to say, we just started letter writing, so and Persuasion. So my favorites, I Want a Iguana and I Want a New Room, are just like classic kids. The kids just love that because they like to talk like that. I wanna. When I'm reading, I wanna, I'm gonna, and they see it in a book and say, are we really allowed to do that? Can we write like that? Yes, you can write like that because that's your tone. That's what you want.
Well, and I know that you brought some examples of some of the student work that you have from your book. Would you mind sharing it now?
Not at all. I'll just
Sure.
pass it to you. So this was an example of a student in first grade who's an ESOL student. This is a level 1 ESOL student who's just at the beginning of learning about language. And we're and I like to integrate, so we're integrating the days of the week, so that's a math curriculum in with the book, and I've just taken the pictures from a book, and I did it with Cookies Week too, and it seemed to be a crowd pleaser, so I tried it again. So I took the pictures and I made copies of them and I miniaturized them, little small, and then I take them out of sequence and they read the story and I read the story, and then they put them in sequence again, and I have a word bank with the days of the week that are all mixed up. And it's a good way for me to assess, do they know the story? Can they retell the story with pictures, not really always with words? And do they know the days of the week? So it's kind of like a double whammy of, I got a lot of data there.
Yeah, that does sound like a lot. Well, so if practice makes perfect, do you guys write every day?
Ooh, I wish I had the time.
That'd be awesome.
I wish there was a 72-hour day.
Yeah.
I try really hard. I keep a journal. I don't know about you guys. I keep a journal by my bed because, that 18 minutes right before, you're knocked out, I have that time to myself, and there'll be thoughts that come across. Right now I'm working on my first adult novel.
Oh, wow.
And so there'll be thoughts that, oh, that's good. I better write it down before I forget it. So I have my jotting journal down. But I wish, I try really hard.
I write emails every day. No, I definitely don't. I wish I had the opportunity, but I really had to carve out time, and it was late at night. The kids were in bed, and my wife went to bed, and that was kind of that's my time to write. House is quiet, so it's definitely something that I have to make time for. Yeah.
Does a shopping list count?
Yes, it does. You got to focus on that too.
Writing, I do try to write every day something, and I either have the iPad next to the bed and I can, just tap on that. And I am a really poor typist, so that's like I press the little microphone and then I can just talk. And
That's
it
a
writes it
very
all
good
down for
idea.
me. So I also use that in the classroom too for students that are reluctant writers or don't have the words, they can't write it. So
Do you have your students write every day?
yes. As I would say, we do. We write every day. We're writing across the curriculum. Well, and I'm sure that happens in every classroom.
Yeah, that was always, class started with journal. And that was how you start class, and then it kind of gets them in the mood and ready to write and ready to learn.
In some capacity, absolutely.
It helps focus your attention and really reflect on your day and think about what's going on in the world. It's a great way to start the class.
I had a comment. I have a student that just came from another country, and she's only been here for a few months, and she loves to write, although she can't. She just writes like little ziggly lines on it, and she was so proud because we do a sharing time, a reflection, and she was so proud she had something done, and someone said, "Oh, I saw that paper, it's just ziggles," and I said, she knows because she told me what it was, and she knew it in her head, and she read it through, the story, just exactly as she had told me 10 minutes prior to that, with beautiful details and a lovely message to it. So even when they can't write, really, they can write. And
They have a
that's what I
story to
tell them.
tell. They have something to say. So do you guys think that email, hip hop, Twitter, text, how has that changed our language? And well, do you think it's changed our language, and how?
I have teenage daughters.
So you're really
but it's kind of neat because they can also they're also forced into being very succinct about their meaning, and sometimes choosing words that best fit what they're trying to say. So there is that aspect if you're being thoughtful about it. I don't think they're going to be thoughtful every tweet, every text, everything. But I think the idea that it's almost like a haiku, so, and I've made haiku my statuses in Facebook before, so, had a great day, no, I need more syllables, but, so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, because I think it can sort of make you have to focus your thoughts a little bit more and use a better word than just some other choice.
Well, and I think students recognize there's a difference.
Yeah.
That they have these different modes where they can text and use one language, and then recognize that when they're writing on a page that they use full sentences and spell out the words. So I think that they can make that shift, and it doesn't take away from their writing. Yeah.
Well, we have discussions in my house about the actual, like, what a word means. I'm talking some older stuff that so my daughter will be like, no, that word doesn't mean what you think, Mom. And then she'll go back and she'll tell me all these things, like, who's the Kendrick Lamar? She was showing, he's not the best example, but there was a whole thing she was showing me that he's really a storyteller, and the words he's using are very specific for this story. You have to use that word. It has to mean this. And when we have this discussion, and it's great. And I'm like, oh, that's not school appropriate, but that idea is so amazing to me. And I know just this week, because we've had some craziness with our testing, I've been letting the kids do some lyric analysis. We've been picking some of the most appropriate, uplifting pop type songs and talking about, well, what do they really mean? How do you know? How would you say that? In your words, what does this song mean? And so I'm able to do that piece with them too. And they still like to LOL, stuff like that. So.
Well, at the beginning of the show, we posed a question: what is the key to good writing instruction? What do you think? We posed that via Twitter. So what do you guys think?
Again, go ahead. Lots of time. Teaching writing is a very difficult subject. In my opinion, it is the most difficult, because if you do it right, it can be very time consuming. But I think especially with the younger kids, if you set that tone and you set that example and you give them the feedback, the editing, and you show them the process again and again, it's very powerful, and they will take that knowledge with them and they will grow with it. But the teachers, gosh, bless them, but it takes time. It takes time to edit those papers, and it takes time to do all of this stuff. And especially with our limited planning time this year and changes in Fairfax County, it's a struggle. But I've seen it out there, and I know it's happening. So,
does anybody else? What's the key to good writing instruction?
Well, I think it needs to be fun. I think that if students are excited about a story they're writing, or they're interested in what they're writing about, the editing, the grammar, and the spelling, that can come later, and you can build that in. But I think just getting them sitting down and writing and getting them excited about what they're writing is the first step.
The personal aspect of it, writing about what you like and what you know. And we do a lot of that in first grade because they're so egocentric. It's all about them. So their stories.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for being here today. We're all out of time. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. Our live program is about to end, but our Twitter conversation will continue. If you'd like to learn more about our upcoming programs, visit us on the web. For the Fairfax Network, I'm Emily Godfrey. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep dreaming. Thank you guys so much again.
Thanks.
Thank you.